Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have three balloons. A black balloon inside a clear balloon, inside another clear balloon. I hope you can see that. This was a suggestion from one of my students. Question being, can I influence the middle balloon, the black one, without influencing the other two? My answer is, I don't know. I haven't tried before, so we're going to have a go. The answer is yes. You see that in there? Spirit has its own miracles from its dimension. It can heal from a distance. It can heal other people. It has remote viewing abilities.
I'd like to welcome to the show Grandmaster Wolf. I'm really excited to talk to you because, like I was saying earlier before we got on the show, I've had spiritual masters on the show and yogis before. I haven't had a martial artist at your level come on the show before. And my very first question to you is, how did your spiritual journey begin? We don't have to do the entire, just some highlights if you could. From what I've understood in the research I've done on you, you were in a monastery, you studied multiple different martial arts, Taoist. How did you find yourself in those worlds? How did you get started in those worlds?
I had a very difficult childhood.
difficult upbringing, lots of abuse. That's where the martial arts began. So I was being abused. No one was stepping in to help me out as a child. So it wasn't, and don't forget there was Bruce Lee back in those days.
Mm-hmm.
So studying Kung Fu, studying martial arts in order to protect myself. That's what got me into the martial arts. Coincidentally and luckily around about the same time, I was having visions and memories that shouldn't have been mine, adult memories. Being 7 years old, obviously not my memories. So that sparked me off in a different direction to everyone else. Little things like before I was 7, when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old, I have memories of sitting on the couch in the lounge room, and for no apparent reason, the wall just opening up before me and seeing huge megaliths, huge rocks rolling down these Scottish hills towards me. And I would just reel back on the couch and scream, close my eyes, and then open up, and the wall would have come back together and the lounge would be back together, and nothing actually happened. So that was happening to me. Of course, back then, the first thing my parents did was take me to the doctors, thinking that maybe I've got brain tumors and things like that, which obviously wasn't the case. That's it really, lots of strange things. And the memories, I didn't know it then, but later on in years to come, it was very obvious to me that the memories was of a past existence, a past life. And therefore I've obviously been here before. Some of the memories involved occult and mystical practices, therefore I've obviously done this before. And that's when I realized I was just carrying on a project that I'd started in a previous body. And that's what started it for me.
And when you were that young, seeing these kinds of visions, getting this kind of information, how did you process it?
At that age, I thought everyone was doing that. I thought everyone was like that.
Right.
It wasn't until I was at school, maybe around 10 years old, that I started to realize that other kids weren't going through this.
So when you decided to start going more deeper into the martial arts, is that when you started to kind of go into the philosophies of the Taoist philosophies and to kind of journey out into the monastery life?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was very lucky in that one of my teachers was he was from China, and his father used to work for the Tong, the triads basically in China. He was a very, very well-respected master, very old, and a lot of wisdom. And he wanted to leave the Tong and just live a normal life like everybody else. Of course, most people, you don't leave any kind of mafia without any, well, you just don't, apparently. I'm saying apparently, I don't know. But they respected him so much, when he wanted to leave, they didn't take his life. They took his face with a glass of acid. They poured acid on his face, left in one eye so he could see, and they let him go, and he was free from that. He came over to live with his son, who was my teacher, my first martial art teacher. So my teacher handed me over to his father, and his father was an absolute master of iron shirt. He was an incredible man. And after about a year of working with him, he basically turned around and said to me, "You are broken on the inside, my friend," because of the abuse and everything else. Until you get fixed, I can't do much more with you. And he wrote me a letter of introduction, put that in a silver tube, bought me a ticket and sent me off to Nepal. And I was met by a Sherpa, and the Sherpa took me over the border into Tibet, which was quite difficult because It was a very tumultuous time back then. The Chinese were still very heavy-handed over there. They were still beating a lot of people up and killing a lot of people. So it was quite difficult. But anyway, my Sherpa got me into Tibet over the border, and 2 weeks later he dropped me off at the front gates of a monastery and kindly took off and left me there. And in a wonderful Australian accent, I thought, "You bastard."
How old were you? How old were you during this?
13, 12, 13.
Oh,
I got ordained at 14, so it must have been about 13.
And then the doors open like a movie. This is like a movie at this point. So then the door opens and the monk is, I'm assuming there's a monk there, and brings you in, and then your journey begins.
There was 3 months. One monk was there to allow me in, and the other 2 were there to laugh at me.
And you stayed at that monastery for how many years?
18.
And that's where you did your internal healing.
Within the first 2 years.
So within the first 2 years, and what did they do there that allowed you to heal? Was it meditation? Was it? I'm assuming that was part of it.
The monasteries that I were mainly involved with were mystical monasteries. They allow for religion. If it's your lot in this particular incarnation to be a mystic and to rise above everything and be one with the all, it's time to leave religion behind and you go to the next step. And that was for me. So to answer your question, there's certain practices that leach you out of your ego. And when I say ego, I mean the entire gamut of your thought process, not just the bad thoughts. People think that the ego is just the bad thoughts, the narcissistic thoughts, but it's not. The ego is the whole self, the whole accumulation of thought.
When you are born, can you talk about what actually happens to the perfect enlightened being that comes out? What is in that vessel and what happens to it while it is incarnating?
The first piece of what I'm about to say, you've heard me say many times, so bear with that, and then I shall attach the extension that you are asking about. Mm-hmm. This will answer a lot of questions for a lot of people. Nature produces everything, and in this case, nature, by nature I mean the universe, nature. So when you are born, you have this beautiful, pristine, clean mind inside a pristine, clean brain, inside this beautiful little brand new body that's been put together by nature. That's what comes out of your mother's womb. That's what nature and the planet made. That's you. Beautiful stuff. That's what you're born as. No thoughts, no ego, no laws, no hatred, no racism, none of that stuff. Just beautiful, pristine, clean mind, and it's still there till the day you die. Now, from that point on, all sorts of people are going to start putting names and labels and opinions and judgments and ideas and beliefs and wrong thinking and a little bit of right thinking into this little head. And those thoughts will accumulate. When they get to about 100 billion thoughts, you now have this big lump of thought process that we call an ego, or it calls itself an ego. It will also give itself a name, or to put it a better way, the egos of your parents will give it a name.
Very much.
So by the time you're 10 or 12 or whatever the age is, it's different for everyone, you have an ego fully formed, full of stuff, and you think, it thinks, you think that that is you. Now, all that information that's been put into that baby is other people's information, other people's beliefs, other people's opinions and judgments. That's what's gone into that baby. And that's what's made up that ego. And that ego is what you think you are. It thinks it's you. It's usurped your life. Everyone in the world has one of those. Now, So you've got this dead zombie ruling your life, these dead thoughts ruling every second and dictating every second of your life. And everyone has one. And they're all made up of other people's rubbish and opinions, as we've just said. Now there's 8 billion of those things in this world right now. And those things, these 8 billion egos that have no wisdom of their own, invented our education system, invented our society, they invented our law system, etc. Is it any wonder life's very shitty for most people? Is it any wonder, after all these years of so-called higher education, no one can still get their head around it? It's still not making sense. Why? Because these things are what we are using to process it and think about it, and they don't have a clue.
Well, you just said there at the end that we cannot process this reality using the ego, using all of these thoughts and opinions and dogmas and everything that's been kind of piled into us over the years. As I think either you said or someone has said, you spend the first 7 years being programmed and the rest of your life trying to be deprogrammed, to find yourself back to source.
Pristine, clean awareness cannot be touched. It can't be located. You can't see it. It's not made of matter. Therefore, that is an aspect of you that is immortal. So to answer your question, people are putting their thoughts into, that's a cup, that's bad, that's good, she's a horror, he's not very good, don't go over there, that's rotten, don't do that, oh, this will happen. Your brain fills up with this shit. And that pile of shit ends up thinking that it's you, and you end up thinking that you are it. This pristine, beautiful, clean mind that nature produced is forgotten in the background somewhere. So the first thing, when you get leached out and you start watching your thoughts as opposed to thinking them, you see in those thoughts fear, hatred, pain, beliefs, opinions, judgments, all of that is in there. So once I sat back for the first time and saw my fear and saw my misery, but not feeling those things because I was separate from them, that was the end of my misery. That was the end of my pain. That was the end of my revengeful thoughts. I was happy, I was healed, ready to go. My next thing was, I wanted to know what is this thing in here that I am watching my thoughts? You don't think that. You have to jump back into your thoughts to think it. You just know it, you understand it. Do you have someone in, I'll give you an example. Do you have someone in your life that you love dearly?
Of course.
How do you know you love them?
You just know.
There you go.
Yeah.
No thought needed.
No, you don't have to think about your loving your children or loving your wife or anything. You just know.
Now in the mystical realm, when you step out of your thought process, you just live your life from knowing, not from thinking. Big difference.
Yeah.
You can't think of something you don't know. If I ask you to think of a motor car, if you don't know what a motor car is, you can't think about one. So you have to know it before you can think it. So why bother thinking it? You know you love your children. You don't have to think about it.
Right.
You see?
That's so beautiful and so simple. And even doing the work the thing that again, by doing this work and speaking to so many spiritual masters and people in this kind of field, is I've discovered that the simpler the answer is generally the quickest way to the truth. 1 + 1 is 2. It's not an algebra equation.
Thank you.
But that's what I've discovered that myself, and understanding that concept of knowing is so powerful because with religion in general, I love what you said about that. Like you could hold on to religion if you want, but if you want to take it to the next level, you must leave religion behind. And people ask me, like, how do you know reincarnation is real? So I go, I just know. It's not intellectual. It's when I first heard the concept, being raised a Catholic, which goes completely against the Catholic, the Catholic church that I was raised in. I just understood. I go, that makes sense to me. It wasn't intellectual, but I just knew. And nothing that anybody else says to me will sway me from that truth, because I understand that just makes sense to me. It's a knowing. And even from my, I meditated for a little while, for like 5 or 6 years of my life. And in my short practice, I've already felt glimpses, pinches of it, of like, oh, that bliss, that blissful feeling that's so beyond anything you can really explain. I can only imagine what it's like for someone like yourself who's been meditating most of their life.
Yeah, all my life, actually.
pretty much almost all your life.
When I think about it.
Well, let me ask you this. When you were in the monastery for those 18 years, where did the knowledge come from? What is the text? I'm assuming there's some sort of ancient text that have been passed down and passed down. This information that's been passed down and passed down to kind of open the mind, like the Vedic texts, things like that. Where did it come from in your monastery?
Between our ears.
Between our ears.
Yes, I will explain.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
All of the mysteries and all of the forces and all of the energies that come together to make up this mysterious, wonderful miracle we call life is between your ears right now. Otherwise, you would be dead, wouldn't you? So, if you have all of the ingredients of the miracle of life in you, making you, keeping you manifest right now, why would you go and ask someone else to tell you about it? Why would you go and buy a book on the subject? Turn inwards, and the whole damn volume of life and humanity is right there before your gaze. It's in your head already. You are made of the stuff that you're looking for. What the fuck? So, you see what I mean?
I do.
The only teachings are methods that have been honed in and tweaked over thousands of years by millions of mystics that can take you out of your thought process without destroying self and place that original all-knowing mind that you have back into the seat of dominance between your ears. Damn, that sounded good, but boy, I bet no one really understands it. Did it make sense?
I understand exactly what you're saying. And again, we can go back to, basic teachings of Christ that are everything I can do, you can do. The kingdom of God is within you. Looking inward is the key. That's what meditation is to open yourself up, to my understanding. To open yourself up to transcend this heaviness that we're going through. So what you were taught were the techniques, not the knowledge. It's not like there's a big library of the secrets of the universe. You don't have the Akashic records in a vault somewhere at the bottom of the.
That's right.
Exactly.
You have them in here. Yeah.
So you can tap into that knowledge, which is all around you and inside of you, but you need the techniques to help you transcend the self, the ego, the things like that. That's what you're taught. It makes all the sense in the world to me. I can't believe I've never thought of it because, again, it's too simple.
Yes, absolutely. Let's simple it down a little bit more, shall we, my friend?
Please.
Let's take all life throughout the universe. Something easy. We'll work with that. The entire universe, what can you break that down to? Matter and an animating force. Put the animating force in the matter, you've got a living form. Take that animating force out, you got dust, you got a dead body. Right. You can break everything down to that. how did these two things come together originally? What is this thing and what is this thing? They're the only questions, and they're the things that you go in to observe. How did it all begin? That's quite easy. Do you want to go into that?
Please.
How deep do you want to go, Alex?
I would like to go as deep as you are willing to go, because these are the kinds of questions that don't get answered and are not exposed into the broad spectrum of the world. And that's what this show is about. It is to literally take your soul to the next level. And that is why that's why I like these deep questions that are not surface level. I want to go deeper in. So it's up to you as far as how far you would like to go, sir.
Okay. Initially, you have to speak, whenever you speak about self, whenever you speak about life, whenever you speak about anything, you have to be talking about the entire universe. Otherwise, you're full of shit and you're missing something. When you say I or me, you have to be talking about the universe when you say that. Otherwise, you've got it wrong and nothing will make sense. Now, I'm going to go at this slightly scientifically, slightly mystically. So, in the beginning, before matter, there was space, emptiness, empty space, nothing there, no matter, no dust, no light, nothing that could be considered matter whatsoever. Now this space, and this is, we know this for a fact, space has substance. It can twist, it can turn, it can get sucked into black holes. It has substance. And we call that mind. Now that space, that all eternal mind going everywhere eternally, is absolutely cram-packed with joy, consciousness, universal love, and awareness. That's what it is. Now, if you imagine as mind, you are floating around there in that nothingness, that empty space. No brain, no body, no thoughts, nothing, just mind sitting there. How would you know you were there? I'll save you some time. You wouldn't. You have to see something to imply that you're there seeing it before you can be self-realized. So mind has been there forever. You experience this, by the way. This isn't a belief system or a teaching. You can experience this. So you got this space, been there for who knows how long. It doesn't know it's there. So let's put that aside for half a second. Next principle is substance of space. Any substance, we know this for a fact, when it gets thick enough and dense enough, it will reach critical mass. And when it does that, it will start to light up. Not much, but it will light up. Now, somewhere in space, this space would have got thick enough and dense enough at some point where it would have started to light up a little bit. Not like a cigarette butt lit up, less than that, but it would have lit up. Not in a center, by the way. There would have to be a periphery around space to measure a center from, for there to be a center. There is no periphery around space, so there's no center. Great. Now, this lighting up stuff would have started somewhere, but not a center. So when it starts to light up, the rest of mind that is eternally in all directions would have gone. It didn't have a head, so it wouldn't have done what I'm doing, but you get the point. If it could speak, it would have gone, I am. What am I? I don't know, I'm invisible. So now it realizes it's there, but it doesn't know what it is. It's only just woke up, basically. So from the need to know what it is, out of its inbuilt miraculous powers that it didn't know it had, out of that need, big bang, now we have skin. So now it can see itself. It's got dust, it's got matter, and it can throw that over itself. Now it looks like you and me and trees and planets and galaxies. Now it can see itself. Now it can begin to explore itself. So now you've got mind in matter and you've got matter in mind, because the matter all became into being within this big mind, and this mind is within it. It's exactly the same as if you have a sponge, a sea sponge at the bottom of the ocean. You can see how the sea, water, is in the sponge and the sponge is in the sea, all at the same moment. Mind is in us and we are in mind, all at the same moment. So now, let's look at you. You are a part of that story. You have matter and you have this animating force. When you are watching your thoughts, you are that original mind, pure awareness. When you're thinking, you are the matter. Those two things. The road to enlightenment is to make that transition from the matter back into that original mind source. So, all things that has ever been alive, all things that this animating force has ever been in, leave behind their experiences in this awareness. Whatever this awareness has been in, whatever form it has ever created and lived through, it retains the memory and the knowledge from that experience. This is how it's getting to know itself, life. When you know things before you turn them into thoughts, that's that knowing. The thought is matter. Thoughts are made of electrical impulses and chemicals. That's matter, that's part of your brain. Loving and knowing isn't made of matter. That's what you're made of. Animating force inside matter. That's a fact. We've just broken all that down. So the path to self-mastery and enlightenment, I have to go back a little bit, I'm sorry.
Sure.
So when you're born, you've got the matter is self-regulating, self-reliant. It's like a perpetual motion engine. Once you start it off, it can run itself. It's the same with matter. Matter has an inbuilt processor. It knows how to feed itself. It knows how to fix itself. It can run itself, basically. So while it's going through life, looking after itself, the spirit can do what the spirit does, which is to observe what it can be. Now, when it comes to knowing itself, life, to fully 100% know itself, it has to have become and been every potentiality, every possibility that it could ever be, it has to have done. Otherwise, it doesn't fully know itself. It has to have been everything. So if it's possible for an elephant to have 14 legs and speak Japanese, that has to happen. Otherwise, life has never fully explored itself to its full potential. So through a tree, it's experiencing that. Through us, it's experiencing what we do. It's experiencing that the matter has the ability to create thoughts. Matter can do this. It's learning about itself. And that's pretty much the human condition. Now, when this beautiful baby is born with this pristine, clean mind, exactly the same one that created life in the first place, that mind, let's say this is the baby's mind, that's the dominating force. It's just watching, it's loving, it's joyful, it's happy, happy, joy, joy baby. And of course, and you've probably already heard this, as soon as you're born, people start putting names and labels in you. That's good, that's bad, this is me, that's right. Daddy, that's a pup, that's a dog, don't go over there, he's a prick, she's not too bad. By the time you're 5 years old, you've got a head full of mud. And it's that ego that is ruling your life. The trick is to reverse engineer that process. Most people go, but how can you live through your day without using your thoughts? Well, it's very simple. You do it all the time. else. When you're eating your dinner, you're not feeling the peas moving around in your mouth. You're not feeling the texture of the meat. You're not doing any of that. You're talking or you're thinking about something else while you're eating. How many times have you driven to a destination and you've thought to yourself, oh my God, I don't remember driving here. I was talking to my friend the whole time. You spend your whole day thinking about other things, missing the actuality of reality. You think about it. Anything either side of now is either memory or assumption. Most people are living in fear of the future, that's assumption, or feeling bad about the past, which is memory. Neither exists. Now exists. Fear comes from the future. If I have a gun in your face, you're not scared of the gun in your face, you're scared of the thought of what's coming next.
Right.
If you didn't have that thought, you would immediately deal with the gun. Immediately, but we don't. We go straight to this fear factor. So if you can stay out of the future and remain in the now, you will never ever experience fear again. You see?
Easier said than done, my friend.
Yes, it is. It took me 6 decades.
Oh, that's all? Just the 6 decades?
Yeah, I got a long way. I'm still a baby. Anyway, that's the situation, and any true teaching from any tradition, any school of thought should be showing you methods of leaching out of your ego and starting to engage life from your original mind again and putting your thoughts in place. That's the only problem in the human realm. That's the only problem in life. That's the reason why our society can be as bad as it can be. That's the reason why we kill each other and rape each other and steal from each other, etc., etc. This all comes from the way people think. So if you reverse that and have this beautiful, wonderful, all-loving entity dominating your life, that's it, you're self-mastered, and you have access to all of the information that awareness has ever accumulated through everything that it has ever been in. That's where the knowledge comes from.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you, first of all, thank you for that amazing explanation. And it was so beautifully and eloquently put together. You've gone through this process, this 18-year process, then you come out and you come into the world. What do you find yourself doing, what is your mission at this point in the life? Because you're doing more interviews, you're becoming more public with a lot of the skills and ideas of things that you've been able to do. The thing that not drew me to you, but once I started doing research, really wanted me to interview you, is your ability to do things that seem to be unworldly. And when I mean it's like using the power of chi and things like that I've heard about. We've all heard of these things, but they seem to be almost like yogic powers, like the things you hear about in like Autobiography of a Yogi and, being in two places at the same time, levitation. These are all ideas that high-end yogis talk about, but they're not shown in public very often. Why did you feel the need to start showing these skills of yours, these abilities of yours in public? And what is the point of what you're trying to do in the life? What is your mission in this life right now, at this point?
Exactly the same as yours.
To awaken people. And this is the path of enlightenment. This is the path of self-realization.
Thank you.
That's basically where we're at. And to go back to these other abilities and powers and things that we've heard, the yogic powers and things like that, you speak of the higher mind. And coming from that higher mind, can you explain the higher mind and how that affects these things? Because there's a story, I think it's in the Autobiography of a Yogi, where there was two yogis and they were on a river, and this yogi, one of them goes, "Look what I can do." And he floated over the other side.
Oh,
Yeah, and landed on the other side. And then the other yogi just walked across the bridge. And he's like, I wouldn't have spent 20 years of my life to learn how to do that. I could just use a bridge and spend that time doing more valuable things because there's a bridge. I don't need that. It's not a life skill. It's an ego skill. And that is the danger with people searching to do these kind of yogic powers or chi powers, the ability, because it could very easily fall into the ego. So easily fall into that
trap.
Right? It is a trap. It is a trap because you could spend 20 years learning to do, or 50 years learning to do some of the things you've been showing online, where, you know, either using your chi to start fire or crunch a plastic bottle or hold up paper, things like that. You can spend your life trying to do that, but it all depends on what the purpose is behind what you're trying to do with that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. You're right on track.
So what is the higher mind, and how does that give you the ability to do these kind of miraculous things that are spoken about in books like Autobiography or Yogi? Because I'm fascinated by what gets you to that place to be able to access those powers, that kind of knowledge, because it's a knowledge, it's a power that you're accessing. You're at a higher level. You've entered, I hate to use the term, the Matrix. I'm assuming you've seen the Matrix. You've become Neo. You're able to now stop bullets. Please, nobody try to stop bullets with their mind listening. But you get to start moving matter and controlling matter in ways that seem magical to the rest of us. Just like if we would show a monkey a light from a flashlight, they would think you're a god. Essentially, they're like, oh my God, like fire, what? You know, but we've mastered fire. So it's just another level of evolution. So that's why I'm interested in discussing it a bit. Okay.
What was your question?
So the higher mind and how that affects the abilities that are spoken about in Autobiography of Yogi, in yogic powers, or in the powers of like the chi powers that you're able to do.
Before I go on with this, I just need to point something else out, and that'll make my answer a lot more understandable. Do you have a window where you are right now?
I see. Yeah, I can see some. I can see outside. Yes.
Can you see a tree?
I do actually see a tree.
Wunderbar. To the rest of the universe, outside of this 6-inch little skull you got here, to the rest of the universe, what would that tree be called? I can save you time again if you like. Please.
I was already, my gear started to crack. You could have seen the smoke coming out of my ears already.
Well, the point is, outside of the human head, that doesn't have a name. It's not really called a tree. That's something that we superimpose over it. It's not called green. That's something that we've superimposed over it. It's there. You could hit your head on it and your head will split in half and bleed. But it's not called a tree. That's something we call it. To the rest of the universe, it doesn't have a name. It's just one more form that life is experiencing itself through. Nothing has a name out there. A mountain isn't really called a mountain outside of our heads. That's just a label that we've superimposed over it. And that is what causes all the problems in the world. What is before you, we call the void. That doesn't mean there's nothing there. It just means that the tree, for instance, in reality, it is void of name. It is void of meaning. It is just there. And it's alive. But it doesn't have a name. And it's not called life. Nothing out there has these concepts. Now that we know that, if you call this a tree and you call this a house, you've just created two delusions. The first one is, now it takes time to get from the tree to the house. You just created time from thought and label, you see. If you call this a tree, you now have to call everything else in the universe that doesn't look like this something else.
It's exhausting.
See? It is. So just by calling that a tree, just by giving one thing a label, you split the entire universe up into countless trillions of pieces just by giving a label to one thing. If you can look out the window and watch life with giving no labels to any of it, it all joins together and you will see this animal that we call the universe being alive, and you are part of it. Then you have an amazing realization when you see that, when you experience that. And I am really sorry about this. I need you to ask the original question again because you need to know that bit.
Okay, so the original mind and how by tapping into that, you can access these other kind of powers that so many people want to access because they're superpowers in our world, but in the reality, they're not.
Okay, so what I've just explained is the process. If I give that the label of pen, there's a whole bunch of thoughts that come along behind that. That's a pen, that was made by a factory. It's certainly got nothing to do with me, and it's sitting there separate from me. All of that thinking will make it impossible for me to move that pen, because now my brain thinks it's a separate fragment. And how can I move something that I'm not connected to? So that delusion will stop you. Once you have the ability to remain in the non-thinking mind, but the all-knowing mind, and you don't entertain any thoughts of self, because as soon as you have a thought of self, you now have to call that a pen. You see? No thoughts of self, one with everything. You are part of that big living, moving entity, that animal that you saw when you got rid of your labels. And the pen is also a part of the animal. So now, once you're in that state of no thought, moving the pen is no different to doing that with your own finger. That's the best explanation I can give.
That's a wonderful explanation. It's, at least to me, it makes sense, because you are, this delusion that we are under, this, the thought, the ego, the mind, the physical, is something that we're trying to transcend. And if you step your toe, if you have any toe inside of it, it muddies up the water. Even if it's a slight thought, it stops you from doing anything.
Absolutely.
So when you're able to transcend that, then you're able to do things and work within the reality, the code, if you will, if you're Neo, within the code, because you see the code. And if we go back to the Matrix, the moment that Neo believed that he was the one, and he connected to source, which was the code, he started to see the code. And once he started to see the code, he can control the code. And that is, in a way, an explanation for people listening of the abilities of someone like yourself or other yogic masters or things like that, who, the yogis that like create ash out of their hands or levitate or are in two places at the same time. These, things that have happened throughout history, is they're tapped into this moving of the universe. You are one with the universe. And if you are all one, it's like blinking. It's like anything that you want to control in your body, you have the mind to control it. But when you're connected to source, to the one, you can do many things that would seem miraculous, but seem simple to you, because you are now in the one, you are in the source, and you can control things just as simple as blinking or moving your finger.
Absolutely. And that is more natural than following your thoughts.
It's just, this is such a beautiful conversation. It's such a beautiful conversation. I can't say other than that, because you are quantifying, at least intellectually, ideas that shouldn't be quantifiable. And we're trying to explain it in language, which things that are feeling, like explain love. Like, there's no words for love. It's a knowing, it's a feeling. You can't quantify love, but we all know it. We all sense it. We all are it. We all have it somewhere in our life, one way, shape, or form, have experienced it in this existence. But to try to quantify is very difficult. So in your experience from doing the levels of self-realization that you've attained, GM, are there other realms that you go to in your meditations? Are there other places that are beyond what we know as this kind of reality?
Yes, all the
as the deep breath. Yes. You go all the time at whim, correct?
I am in other realms more than I am in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, if I'm not engaging with you or anyone else, I don't think. I have nothing to think about. I'm extremely content. I'm extremely happy. I have no questions about life whatsoever. Yeah, so if I'm not talking to people, I just park this thing, basically. I'll go and park it somewhere and make sure that it's not going to shit itself while I'm away, and give it a bit of water and food, and then I go and explore other dimensions, other times. You can go to other planets. Well, it's not a matter of going, it's a matter of you're already there. All things are in you and you are in all things already. So you could be on Mars in less than the blink of an eye. You're already there, awareness-wise.
Because it's the ultimate quantum entanglement.
Thank you. You just took that out of my head. There you go, your mind reading. They are the words that I was thinking right then.
It is the idea of quantum entanglement, and that's what's throwing quantum physics into uproar, because they can't explain it. They don't understand quantum entanglement. We
can explain it.
Of course, it's because it's a mystical, and that's why I love having quantum physicists on who are connected to the spiritual, because it seems that science and the mystical and spirituality are coming closer and closer, and science is catching up a bit to the mystical.
Yes.
They've been talking about things like quantum entanglement for thousands of years, and it's in a different language, but the concepts are the same.
What I'm getting at here is when you know how to work with the brain and you know how to turn certain buttons on and off, you can create miracles with that brain, and it will heal things that no one else could possibly heal. It can make things move that shouldn't be able to move. It can do many, many miraculous things. So now we're talking about magic. You're always doing magic on yourself. For every thought that you have that you think is real, it's going to have a placebo effect on you. And that can be a curse, or it can be whatever the opposite of a curse.
A blessing, let's say.
Thank you. It can be a blessing.
But the placebo only works if you believe the source that idea is coming from. So in my parents' generation, anyone with a white coat who calls himself a doctor knows all.
There you go.
And if the doctor says, here's this pill that we just had to they'll believe it. If I tell them the same thing, they'll go, no, they don't believe that. So it all depends on the belief system of the person in this scenario. So with that same thought pattern or that same idea, you can then believe, if you have a truth belief in co-creation of your own universe, you can do miraculous things. Doors that were shut will open. People that you never thought would come into your life have come into your life. And all
what
of
do you think will come to be? Shit, I just lost my train of thought again. I'm sorry, I'm so tired right now.
It's all good. Jim, I could talk to you for another 5 hours, my friend, but you will fall asleep, because I know you're tired where you are in the world.
I really apologize, Alex, but just in the last 20 minutes, I'm just going, blah.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I completely understand. Listen, you've given me more than enough time, and I appreciate your time. And do you have any final messages for the audience?
The world some absolutely wonderful, magnificent things are going to be happening in the world in the next year or so. Life is going to get much, much better. I can guarantee you that. Some things are going to be happening soon in the world that is just going to blow everybody's minds. And I'm talking spiritual stuff, space travel.
Yeah,
it's just we're due for a revolution, and it's already started. So I guess the message is this: it doesn't matter how bad things seem at the moment. Just look after yourself, look after your loved ones, stay healthy, stay happy, and be patient, because life is about to get so much better for everyone. Guaranteed.
Grandmaster Wolf, thank you so much for coming on the show. And this has been a profound conversation. You are welcome back anytime. We have to have you back and have deeper conversations about other aspects of reality in the future, my friend. But I truly, truly appreciate you being on the show and sharing your knowledge and experience with us, my friend. Thank you.
I have absolutely thoroughly enjoyed myself tonight, Alex. Thank you very much. Let's definitely do this again. And next time I'll have a nap beforehand.